I'm Brent Leary.
Paul Greenberg.
It's Thursday. Who else would we be? Well, in fact, who else would we be on any day? Think about it.
Well, that's actually a reasonable point. For me this week, given that I'm literally sitting here with some sort of bug, maybe the flu, who knows? Not COVID, everybody. I'm not contagious. I could be anybody as far as my mind is concerned.
Well, but we are the CRM players, and we're glad to be here. You know, where else would we be?
Well, here, and
Oh,
then
wait a
we'd
minute.
probably be here. And
And
the
of
other
course,
option is a different room here.
that's true. But and of course, it wouldn't be a CRM players episode without the moment of Sven. And here he is.
Clientes and Central. Oh, Latin. Holy cow.
Is that what it says in Latin? Holy cow!
Yes, it says. Wait, Yvonne, my wife, for those of you who don't know her, was actually like number one student, an A student in Latin when she was young. She could probably read this. I can only tell you it has something to do with my friends and customer centric without dispute. I'm translating roughly here, and I don't know what the rest means. Excited to be with my friends.
Well, that's good. Whatever it means, it sounds good. Sven, we just whoa. Let me do this. Got a little echo. Sven, we need you to qualify. Make sure that that is the correct answer. And in the meantime, Mr. Bergson, it's been a while.
Yeah, man, way too long. So, Alan, that under the weather did turn into a bad bug of some kind.
Bad
Just
bugs aren't good.
Yeah, Alan and I were both under the weather for a little bit. We were commiserating.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a bit of a different show. We usually, do a little spiel up front, then we bring a guest on, towards the second half, and we schmooze a bit, and you guys know the routine. But we're going to do things a little differently today because we had like a really interesting development that took place kind of out of the blue yesterday with with Bret Taylor stepping down as co-CEO as Salesforce CEO, co-CEO. And I heard about it and towards the end of the CRM Players Happy Hour, which by the way was, people carried on even with you being gone, and you were definitely.
Oh my God, I'm so shocked. I'm so shocked. People can live their lives without me. Oh my God, I can't believe
Guess
that.
what? That group talked a lot about stuff. What a shock!
Yeah,
it was good. But anyway, you were definitely missed. But towards the end, and Steve Gilmore, the venerable Steve Gilmore was on the thing, and I noticed as we were, the happy hour was progressing right after 4:00, which was when, Salesforce's earnings were announced and, the press releases going out. I noticed that the venerable Steve Gilmore started looking like a little frazzled, he was looking all over. He was looking at different things. And I was like, wonder what the venerable Steve Gilmore was doing. Well, apparently he also heard the news, and I say that because Steve does work for Salesforce, but he looked a bit surprised at that news as well. So not only did he look surprised, but let's go here because this took a lot of people by surprise. So let me play this.
The reason why your stock is down in after hours trading is simply because you lost the best that I've ever seen you have.
Wow.
Well, Jim, look, it's a gut punch, and
looks like
running a company, and I've been doing this now for 25 years. You look for the best people in the world to bring them in, and the hardest part is when they tell you that they want to leave, and that's where we are with Bret. Bret's going to be leaving at the end of the year, and it's hard. Every loss, for me, reminds me of the previous loss. It could be Gassner, it could be McKinnon, it could be Rosenbaum, it could be George Hu, it could be Blitzer, it could be Keith Block. I mean, you work to find and bring and these folks, but you can't keep a wild tiger in a cage. And I've learned that and you do your best. You bring up great talent, and if they need to leave, they need to leave, and you have to support them. And I love him. I love him like a brother. I'll love him forever. He's just an amazing person. I've been just so thrilled to work with him for the last 7 years. I knew him for so long before that as well. And all I can pray for is that I'll continue to work for him as he goes to start his third company now.
It wasn't us that were just caught off guard. That was a man that looked visibly affected by that news.
Yeah. You remember, it must have been 6-7 months ago at least, where somehow, and I don't remember where we saw it, we saw something that said Bret reported to Mark, and he was co-CEO when that happened. And at that point, you kind of knew that it really wasn't the co-CEO.
Yeah, but
yeah. Well, I mean,
but I think our next guest, I think he might have been in agreement with me, because when the initial news that Bret was moved, I think he was chief product officer, and then he became co-CEO. It just felt like there was a pathway being created here.
Oh, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, Mark is such a dominant CEO that it's hard to double with him, so to speak. I mean, it's just hard.
I mean, his presence overshadowed even
everything.
As much as Bret Taylor's done, it's still Mark Benioff. It's still Salesforce. Before we bring our guest on, here's the last thing that solidified that actually really changed the way I was thinking when I initially heard about it, and then I heard this.
All right, then. I have to say something, and it's something that I did not want to say ever, and I'm extremely sad to tell you that Bret Taylor is going to be leaving the company. Bret and I are like brothers. I love him very deeply. He's an incredible person, and one of the great joys of my company has been having him here. And I'll tell you, for me, this has been a feeling, of tremendous loss. I'm experiencing that right now. You can probably hear it in my voice. It makes me think of all the great people that we have actually lost in the company over the time as well. So many great leaders of our industry, but especially now with Bret. This is just really hard for me, and I'm extremely sad to see him go. I know he, has created 2 great companies. I know he wants to go create a 3rd great company, and you can't keep a wild tiger in a cage. And we got to let it be free and let him go. And I understand, but I don't like it. And Bret, you know that you're always going to be our brother. You know that we love you very deeply. That you have a home here. We're gonna try to get you back somehow. So don't think that you're gonna somehow get out of this alive, because you're not. And
it went from being sweet to being
you're always being part of our Ohana. And
Ohana.
We are
Ohana
really
in the same
upset
breath.
about this. And
changes my view of Hawaiian culture.
I guess. For us, but I know that you're going to be with us through the end of the year, and I know you're going to continue to work with us.
The end of, by the way, just to clarify,
point,
it's the end of Salesforce's
Bret,
fiscal year,
and
January 31st,
so
2023.
To see you leave the company at the end of this year.
All right, I like to play that mainly because you could tell there is no acting involved with that. And the other reason I wanted to play that is because I just like using that picture that we have of Mark looking off to the side like that. It gives me an opportunity to use that. All right. So it also gives me an opportunity to bring in our guest, the one and only Ron Miller, enterprise tech reporter for TechCrunch, a notorious, Patriots fan.
One of the few people who have beaten our never appear again.
I know. We just break all the rules for this guy.
I know.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. I know you got to run.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So the first thing I read about, actually, you sent me a message. Said, hey, did you want to have a quote for this news about Bret Taylor leaving? I'm like, I hadn't even heard it yet. I was like, wow. Okay.
I didn't know if you heard it.
He sent that on Monday.
Can I tell you a quick story before we get into this? I was actually on a call with Aaron Levy from Box, and I see up in the corner of my screen, that Bret Taylor stepped down, and I'm just like, I listened to him for a few more minutes and I said, I'm really sorry, Aaron. I got to cut this call short because Bret Taylor just stepped down. And Aaron went, like it surprised him. It surprised everybody. And you can see it even surprised the man that owns the company or started the company. I mean, it's just like it was such crazy news out of nowhere. I don't think anybody who follows this industry wasn't shocked.
Paul, you didn't, yeah, Paul wasn't all that shocked about it.
No, I wasn't shocked. I kind of, when Keith Block stepped down, my thinking at the time, this, one problem with all of this is
Who was a
hard to know.
Patriots fan, by the way?
Who is? Keith or
Keith?
Brett? Well,
No, Keith.
Then I'm a little okay, and I'm a little more okay with him stepping down then.
Yeah.
But I remember when he stepped down. Well, let me back up. There was one thing that we just don't know, which is internal politics, and they always play a role in this. And there's no way to determine exactly what those were. And I know every time I've speculated on these things, I'm usually wrong, at least 50% wrong, if not more.
Well, you don't know if you're wrong or not because we don't know what we don't know.
Well, no,
right?
eventually I do find out, believe me. But I make a point of finding out, and I'm not bad at it. But I am mostly
Be a
wrong.
reporter.
Now, remember my degree is journalism and English, right? So that never left me. So, but I remember when Keith Block stepped down, and then it wasn't long after that Bret Taylor was promoted, that I realized, okay, it was pretty clear why he stepped down, at least on the face of it, because he wasn't going to get the CEO's role down the road. And that, I think he figured that out. The other thing that just triggered me, so I'm always watching for little things that might be more than they seem to be, which is, I work with anomalies basically. But the thing was that Bret Taylor I mentioned this earlier on. When I said
that was
Bret
an
Taylor still
piece that you're talking about. I had thought about that too, by the way, Paul. Both of our minds, both journalism English majors, going to the same place.
Right, exactly. But to me, that was actually important because it's not a co-CEO theoretically is 50% of the power, or so to speak, right? And that wasn't there, right? So that immediately sets up a disparity of role, and at a certain point, one thing or the other, how do I put it? The balance reasserts. So this happening, while I was surprised it happened right now, but at the same time, I wasn't surprised that it happened. So what about you, Ron? I mean, what's your take on all of this?
So I mean, I'm right with you, Paul. I mean, I've been thinking, where's the why, right? And that's an obvious why, because the power succession was going to take longer than Bret was originally led to believe. Again, pure speculation on my part.
Yep.
But I'm just like listing what are the possible whys, right? One was the succession was going to be too long. Two could be, maybe they had decided on a time and then Mark changed his mind. Who knows? Or, he had a very rough year. He had to deal with the whole Elon Musk thing, running the Twitter board. When he took that board chairmanship, I'm sure he wasn't thinking that all this stuff that went down was going to be going down. There was a lot of pressure on him. And, one of my colleagues I was talking to today was speculating that, well, maybe he just burned out, and he just had enough. And, it's funny because about a month ago, right after Elon took over at Twitter, I wrote a piece for TechCrunch where I talked about how, well, now he doesn't have to worry about all that crap at Twitter. He can devote his full time to, helping Salesforce. And then a month later, he's out at Salesforce. So, but, the question is, is that why, or is it, as you said, the politics why, or does he really want to go build a company? I mean, that's certainly legitimate, but everybody is like banging on that. He wants to build a company. He wants to build a company. And it would be interesting to me to see whether he really does build the company or he becomes the CEO at another big enterprise company.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think of all that he's already done. He started companies. He's built products with companies that led to big things. He's built his own companies. He's sold his old company. He came to Salesforce and was the architect for a $27 billion acquisition of Slack. He became chief product officer and co-CEO. I mean, that's a lot. And so maybe he was just like, you know what, maybe, I want to do something. I want to go back to the roots. I don't know. I mean, there's just so many things that you could speculate. But one thing it seemed painfully obvious to me is Mark Benioff was not expecting this to happen at this time. And the way he was talking about it, I mean, it was in his voice, but look at that Kramer clip. He was like, he kind of put his head down briefly for a second.
Yeah.
Kind of like gathered himself a little. I think he was affected because, he mentioned a lot of other great folks had left in terms of, talent and, experience and knowledge and all that. But there seemed to be more of a personal connection here beyond what all the things that Bret has accomplished. There's how many times did he say he loved them and that he was his brother?
I know.
That stood out to me as being a little different than the other people that left.
Yeah, it was funny. Actually, I can't remember who it was, but there was one of the other people I didn't even know who he was.
Oh, yeah, when he was naming names.
Yeah, I had no idea who that was.
And if you don't know him, Paul.
Well, it was kind of weird, actually. It was kind of weird. I think you're. I mean, I would agree, Brent. He obviously was emotionally distraught, really, about it. I don't know if he was wildly distraught, but he was upset that it happened, and it did bother him. And again, I mean, the other side. Look, years ago, I wrote this thing about what I used to call the personal value chain and how it impacted the actual, business value chain. And I basically, the concept was 98% of the things going on in the personal value chain of an individual are affecting the value chain of the business that they're engaging with, but the business will never know them, right? It's like having, the way I used that, have a big fight with your significant other, and, the simplest version is abandon a cart instead of wait for the lag time to go through on Amazon. And they wanted to know why you abandoned the cart. And it was because I had a fight with my significant other. And that's 3 seconds that it took for the thing to go through. It felt like 30 minutes. And I just was frustrated to begin with. There might be 100 personal decisions in this thing too with him. I mean, it's just impossible to say in that level. Again, I don't think anybody's doing more than speculating. I saw one guy who speculated that he was going to build a new version of Friend Feed.
Oh my God. I think that's kind of past at this point, but okay.
No. Yeah, well,
I think it's social. Oh, who knows? Maybe he wants to go after Twitter for the aggravation it caused.
That's right.
So all right, well, which begs the question. He leaves. Let me see. I think I even have a couple of. Let me see if I can prop this up real quick. And I know you're getting ready to leave. So they did announce earnings, and I guess it didn't quite meet with expectations, or they beat a little, but then the direction caused some of this. Their stock price fell about 6%, but I mean they're on a clip to be almost 30 to 31 billion, annual.
Right along your forecast.
Yeah, that's exactly. Just right on the penny.
To your forecast, getting on the way.
Larry, financial genius.
And as you know, all things considering, the growth numbers, they're not bad. Of course, I'm sure Bob Stutz might have a different opinion.
12% for a company like them is pretty low, actually. But
yeah.
the whole thing, if you look at the bottom numbers there, the constant currency numbers. Now, I'm not a financial expert either, but I've learned a lot from working with Alex Wilhelm. But the thing is, the currency problem is a real problem for these companies right now. And you can see 12% is like, you don't want to be getting much lower than that, or you're getting into, kind of doldrums growth. And if you're in the mid-teens for a mature company like Salesforce in a year like this, and that's a pretty good growth rate, but we are dealing with the currency issues and the strong dollar and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And but generally
It's funny
speaking,
because I didn't even realize, because I was so caught up in the news about Brad that I didn't even really pay that much attention to the numbers themselves.
yeah, because I think the reason, and Kramer mentioned on that video clip, their stock price went down 6%, and it felt like it was mostly due to the Brett news more than the earnings report, which was really kind of interesting. But anyway, so what
I
happens
mean,
next? Ron, where do you see what happens to Salesforce in the near term with this? Anything change?
everybody I talked to a bunch of people, including you, and you know, what people are telling me is that, as long as Mark is there, which is one thing that Brent said this morning, as long as Mark is there, um, things are going to pretty much continue along. And uh, another person I spoke to yesterday said the co-CEO model is designed specifically for resilience in mind. This was Holger Merler over at Constellation Research who told me this. And because if one of them steps away, obviously, if the one that stepped away was Mark, it would have had a bigger impact on the
Yeah.
market. But would it have had a bigger impact on the company at this point? It's maybe not, because as Mark pointed out in the earnings call, transcript after he got all over the mushy stuff with Brad, was that, and I shouldn't make fun of him because he was genuinely upset, and I could see that. But the idea, people started asking, okay, Brett's leaving, what happens next? I mean, the analysts asked that, and what he was saying was we have such a deep bench of people that you can pull somebody substantial like Brett out of play, and you're still not going to lose, a lot in terms of how the company runs, because to a large extent, these departments are all run by very competent people, and they just report up the chain. And that, if you take somebody like Brett away, you're not going to it's not going to be devastating. Obviously, he had a role and he was very good at it, but it's not going to like wipe the company out because he he left any more than it was when Keith left. There was that continuity after Keith left as well.
So do you think? Okay, so do you think A, that there will be a new co-CEO, or Mark going to just say, "I'm just stay at the helm," and B, if you do, when?
Okay, so I'm not sure. I think that you know, I asked Laurie McCabe for a comment this morning too for that article that I wrote, and she believes that there will be, because she thinks that you know, Mark really does want to kind of focus on big picture stuff and the philanthropy side of the business, but he doesn't want to let go of the title, right? So that would mean he would bring in somebody else to kind of run the business day to day, because any way you look at it, running a company the size of Salesforce is huge. So
Yeah.
would it make sense for him to bring in somebody? Yes, it would, but I don't see anybody obvious right now either.
Yeah. That's the
Like
way I was looking
I
at
mean,
it.
Brad was obvious.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. You could tell there was a certain level of personal investment that he had with Brett, and that looked like it's taking a toll out of him. He
No,
called it
no
himself
doubt.
a
I mean,
gut punch.
he he was upset. He was
Yeah,
upset, and um, you know, they obviously have a very strong personal relationship. As two people, and I don't think he saw this coming, and I think that he was he was as surprised as anybody, which is basically what the title of my piece was about today. Like, everybody was surprised, even his even Mark Benioff, right?
right. And
If he
that's why
didn't know, nobody knew. Except
and that's
Paul.
why I'm thinking, because he probably had it in his head that the eventual successor was going to be this Brett. And when is derailed and it looks like it was a surprise to him, I wouldn't expect to have somebody right away be named, because it seems like there's a lot that he took into consideration bringing
Well,
that
there's all,
bringing better on
So
board.
you guys read
yeah.
anything into that? Well, that will have you back at some point. Like,
I
is that
no, I
like
mean,
when he's ready to go? We'll call Brett.
yeah,
We'll buy his
no,
company again, or
right, that's right. You know
Right.
what? I mean, that's Mark saying, we really value you. We love, it's. The answer is, will he try to get him back? I'm sure he'll make inquiry. He does that. He's done that before. But will it work? It's look, we got to remember one thing. It's up to Brett, not him, what happens, right? Right. So if Brett doesn't want to come back, he's not coming back. Right now, he doesn't want to come back. So if Mark started working on it right now, he won't come back. If he starts working on it in 2 years and Brett's having a problem with the company, his company or whatever it's going to be, maybe, the new Quip, which, by the way, I thought was a horrible product. But the thing was, that
Never quite
I think
understood it.
well, no, it was not. Look, they got Brett in the bargain, and okay, but but the net is all that's timing, all that's necessity, and in 2 years, if it's when Brett feels like, okay, I'm not making a go. I would love to come back to Salesforce. Salesforce might won't want him anymore, right? Because they have a co-CEO. It's all working well, right? Who knows? I mean, I don't think, to your point, Brent, that that he's going to make a decision anytime even close to soon, right? If we see somebody next year, I'll be not surprised, but let's say I'll be a little bit surprised, just because he invested so much in making this decision. He kind of pushed out his well, that's not fair. I don't want to say that. Take that back. His former co-CEO. Well, I think Keith left of his own accord, really. I mean, but he saw he wasn't pushed out. He was just basically showed there was no avenue, and Brett came after it. That sort of was being made clear. I don't know. Again, politics. Spent 22 years
I mean,
in
to
it.
me,
I don't want to
Keith
speculate
was
again.
the perfect CEO for Mark because Keith is the consummate salesperson, right? And he could do that whole schmoozing side and like be out there and do all that stuff that maybe Mark is ready to kind of let go and be higher level and like Lori was saying, and take care of the philanthropy side of the house and all of that. Um, I don't know that Brett was like the salesperson guy. He's more of a strategy guy himself, an idea guy. So, how those two roles fit together is interesting to me. I'm wondering what you guys think of that.
Well, to be honest, I never saw. I was not a giant. I didn't love Brett as CEO particularly one way or the other. I didn't think he couldn't do it. I didn't have an optimal choice, but he didn't fit the profile of my kind of optimal choice. But, and that said, I don't know that in any way, shape, or form. Mark at the same time did. Okay. And so, I defer to Mark in that regard. It's his company, not mine. And, at the same time, would I love Brett as CEO of Salesforce without Mark? I don't know. I really didn't know one way or the other. It's moot now, but I didn't know.
Well, I think the key is if it's a co-CEO or somebody that comes in that looks like he's filling Brett's position, it's always gonna, as long as Mark is there, anybody that fills that position is always going to be overshadowed. Even as much as Brett has done in his career, and he's done a lot of stuff. When he's sitting there as co-CEO, we all know what the perception is. It's Mark's show still. And I think he's gonna have to find the right person to be able to understand that and be willing to be in that position until he is ready to move on. It's just a tough call.
I mean, he's got a lot of CEOs from companies that he bought, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote a story a couple of years ago, about who would take over if Benioff left, because everybody's always speculating that at some point Benioff is going to get tired and move to Hawaii. It's been 23 or 24 years running this company, Bezos did it, and maybe it was time for maybe Mark was thinking about doing it. And there were all these guys from MuleSoft and from Tableau and now from Slack. I mean, there's a bunch of people who have been CEOs.
Velocity.
Yeah, right. There's just a lot of people out there who have a lot of experience, and people who are in the company who have been there for years and years who have lots of experience. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of people who understand the business. The question is, who will he trusts, and he obviously trusted Brad a lot,
Yeah.
and is deeply,
And I
feels
think
the
that,
loss as deeply.
yeah, that's, I think, the component that's going to be hard for him to come to immediately with somebody else, because there was a connection there, regardless of anything else. The dude called him brother several times and said he loved
Yeah,
him. That says
yeah.
a lot. All right, Ron, we know you got to go, but you
All right.
did mention Tableau and Adam Selipsky, and now he's
Right.
at Amazon, and you've been doing the whole reinvent. Give us a couple of highlights that came out of that before you roll.
It was a really quiet reinvent for the most part. I saw a lot of, and one of the things I've been thinking about a lot this week is I wrote this last year. I wrote, my wrap up was, 2021 reinvent was more incremental than innovative, and I really feel like there were a couple of major announcements this year. Maybe the zero ATL goal is a big one. That stands out for me, and one that got some attention in terms of the story I wrote. Um, but there weren't like showstopper kinds of uh, res- you know uh, announcements, and it kind of surprised me a little bit that there were a lot of like, here's a new feature, or this database now communicates with this service, which, not to minimize, people need this stuff. They need a lot of these pieces to work together, because this is a huge business that AWS has, and kind of doing things to make it easier for developers and IT folks to kind of manage all this and make all this work together is important. But in years past, we were getting introduced to like new databases and new services, and there's just less of that this year, and it was just a little surprising to me.
Yeah, well, it almost feels like this was just a year, because we kind of remember, Paul, we were saying the same thing. Well, Dreamforce, it was almost sort of like inverted. It was like
Yeah.
there was no hype, the typical hype that leads up to a Dreamforce. You didn't feel it. There was less people because it was only 40,000
Yeah.
versus 170. But the actual announcements felt like they were at a lot of substance and meat to it. But
Yeah, there was nothing
because
like Genie at AWS that I could see this week.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm talking about. Like this kind, and that again, that is like kind of a plumbing announcement. But of course, they know how to package stuff, first of all.
Yeah.
But they also, they were solving a big problem about how to get all this data into one place, and again, if you kind of look at what AWS did over like many announcements, they were trying to help you move stuff around and connect stuff together. And, there's something to be said for that, like I said, but it's just not, there's none of that. Like, oh my gosh, they announced this, and, how do they keep coming up with this stuff kind of announcement?
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes, let's say less than innovative is better. I mean, you can only be where you are, and
I mean, there's maturity to the business,
Right.
right? I mean, it's like the business is still growing. It's like like an $80 billion business. You can't argue with where it is. Um, it's a crazy big business, and even though it's growing a little slower than it once was, it's still a very large business. But I've been having these thoughts lately about, like Bezos left, right? And kind of stepped away, and Chassis got the big job, and now he's got like this situation where he's like, oh my gosh, I got to deal with this economy, and people aren't buying as much as they were in 2020, and now I got to start making cuts here and there. And then Selipsky got Jassie's job, and when Jassie was at AWS, it was just like all growth and all love, and everybody was like, look at what Jassie's doing at AWS. He's like he's the gem of the company, right? He's running the gem of the company. And now he's like the boss and things are tough. And now Salipsky comes on and, growth isn't what it once was when Jassy was there. So it's like neither one of them got what they bargained for, but they're still working for, a substantial
Yeah,
company.
exactly.
Yeah. All right, Ron, we know you got to roll, but thanks for making time and
Thank you, sir.
and for not talking about the
All right.
Patriots too much. So that's always a good thing.
All right, well, we'll watch tonight and see what happens. I hope they don't get stomped.
All right, I would love to wish you good luck, but I just can't do it. So
I'm not me either.
All
Sorry. All
all right,
right.
man. See
All
you
right,
later.
well,
See you,
I'm
Chief.
the Rams fan and the Yankees fan to the Patriots fan.
Take
See
care,
you,
man.
Chief.
See ya. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
That was
Always.
it's always good to talk with him. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. While we're doing that, one of my lights went out.
Is that what was going on? I was trying to
Yeah,
figure
that's
out.
why all of a sudden, this my big aperture light over here, nothing over here, went out. So I just adjusted the two key lights a little bit, but it's not quite the same, but close enough.
That looks good.
Looks good.
So do you see any time impact, lasting impact from this, or is this
Mark's way too dominant at the company. I think we were understating the impact Mark will have when he leaves, or I'd like to say if and when, but he'll leave like everybody eventually does.
Yeah.
But he will, unless he's really, really come up with somebody amazing. The impact he'll have is going to be huge, right? Well, let's say huge within the realm of the fact they're a fully functional company with or without him. But it still will be huge because, what's his greatest strength? It's, it's marketing, really. I mean, he's an astounding marketer at best I've ever seen in the world ever. And not having that presence anymore will make a giant difference to Salesforce's entire impact, in the world, really. I mean, he drives the impact in terms of the public visibility, at least.
Yeah. Just think about Bret Taylor for a second. He was, he did friend feed, but didn't he also have a hand in creating Gmail or the like button on Facebook, something like that? He had a direct hand in something like that. So that's something that billions of people use on a daily basis.
Yeah,
and then
little things.
Yeah, and he created friend feed, and he sold 2 companies, and
he's been successful. He's just
no, I'm just saying. I'm just kind of lining it up. He comes to Salesforce. He is the architect behind a $27 billion acquisition. I mean, there's no way around it. So he's done all these he's the chair of the board of advisors for Twitter, for crying out loud.
For at least at least for the next couple of days.
Yeah, well, I mean, all that still put him squarely in the shadows of Mark Benioff.
Yeah,
it's pretty astounding when you think about somebody who has done. If you just didn't put a name to it, and you listed those accomplishments, you'd be like, oh man, this guy's going to be talked about all the time. But he pales in comparison to the amount of attention that Mark Benioff is able to generate and create just from being himself. And so when you're a Bret Taylor who's accomplished so much, you have to have next to no ego at all to be able to stay in that position where you're completely overshadowed because of the guy who created the 800-pound gorilla and has actually been a very big driver of the overall industry. And so you can see why Bret Taylor might want to go someplace else after being there for 6 years.
Absolutely. He made a decision that he wants to leave for whatever reasons it was. And what's the word? I appreciate his decision, certainly. I mean, if I hated it, it wouldn't matter. It's his decision, not mine. So, but, the thing is that it's a complicated, that's always, Salesforce is one of the most fascinating companies on the planet, and they're one of the most accomplished companies on the planet. And to their credit, they are the levels of success they have are just staggering in any business of any kind, anywhere in the world ever. Right. And they've done it in, in let's say larger business terms, they've done it in a relatively short time, 20 years, let's say, not even, a little, 99 is their founding. So 23 years. So to their credit, they never slow up. And it's also to their, that doesn't mean the results don't slow up, but they don't. They're always pushing for expanding their reach, promoting the culture, building out the product sets, doing all the things they got to do, and they keep succeeding at them. And, like any other company, some of the products are fantastic and some of them are not so good, and a lot in between. And they're all, most every product, at least minimally, and this would be at the worst, competitive, and optimally are, market leaders. And they have all of that going, and they keep having it, and they keep wanting to grow, they keep wanting to expand what they provide. Now, this is driven publicly. It's done by all those people on the product teams and, middle management at the company, but it's driven by Mark, really. I mean, but, and without those two both working together, it wouldn't happen. And they need, but so if Mark decides I've had it too much, that will have a huge ripple. And to your other point, which is they've impacted the whole industry, not just themselves, and that will have it'll have an impact on the whole industry.
Yeah. What do you think would look like when Mark comes out and says, I'm moving on?
I have no idea. I really have no idea. For all I know, that's 15 years from now, and I'll be 88. I won't care. And I won't care. I really won't care. Right. But
do you see anybody else that could potentially have that level of impact that he's had over the time that Salesforce has been around? I can't think of anybody who has come close to having any singular individual that could come close to the impact he's had. Is there anybody that could do that going forward, you think?
I can't see that. There is one individual I would say had, in a very different way, but had that impact on the whole industry, and that's Larry Ellison.
Yeah.
I have to give him credit for being right up there with Mark as far as just how much impact he's actually had on the entire technology industry, really, entire software industry.
Yeah. But even with that said, we remember when they butted heads.
Oh yeah.
And we saw who actually won that battle.
Oh yeah. Mark again. As far as marketing goes, I have never in my life seen anybody in any industry in any way whatsoever.
All right, we got to address this one. We're talking CRM here.
Right.
I mean,
you are CRM convos,
I know we're talking CRM. I'm sorry, there's no comparison.
No.
Not for CRM.
No. I mean, look, we'll give Hasso's should get his due for what he did on the ERP side, and he should get it. That said, it still wasn't the same level of impact as Larry Ellison or Mark.
Right.
It wasn't no impact. It was strong impact and
huge impact.
But not like those two.
No,
he didn't have the public, because he didn't have the public character. Larry could be,
I didn't. Well, if I said tech industry, when we're talking Mark Benioff, we're talking CRM industry. I'm not trying to be funny or nothing, but they're not the tech industry, because there's Bill Gates, there's Bezos. I mean, I'm talking really specifically CRM industry. You can even open up a bit to business applications, but I'm going to stick to CRM because it's the biggest spend in enterprise right now, and it has been over the last several years. And let's face it, one of the main reasons why it is that is because of what Mark has done with Salesforce.
And also to assuage the feelings here on Hasso, here's the other side of it, which is Larry had that kind of impact because he was such a visionary on CRM. He doesn't have it anymore. It's not like that. He moved kind of away from it as far
Larry
as
did.
emphasis.
Yeah, Larry, I mean, you've said it a number of times in the past. He was so far ahead of himself with the network computer idea, which
Oh my God, yeah.
And he was the guy who had funded a lot of these early CRM investments that got him off the ground.
I mean, yep. And he used to talk it up all the time. But I mean, I remember, I don't remember if it was a Open World or something. It's something I wasn't there, but I was watching it, something that he was doing. And CRM was his focus, and it was just powerful. And that was a long time ago. It was probably 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah. And I just like, when you think of the other big guys, the Oracles, the SAPs, the Microsofts, they do so many different things, and they built their business on different stuff. Oracle, of course, is database. Microsoft operating systems and Office applications. SAP.
John's got it. Put up John's comment. Read. Take a look. Yeah, he's questioning something that we're saying. Hey,
John.
Down, John.
Hey, John, if you're around, let us know. We will bring you on.
No, look at this.
But no, I all these other companies were built on the foundation of something else. Salesforce is built on the foundation of CRM. And
Siebel. Tom Siebel, as much as I can't stand that guy, Tom Siebel is the pioneer, right? When it comes to CRM, without him and without Bob Stutz on the technology side of it all, there is no CRM industry, right? And there's no getting around that, right? I mean, there was CRM technologies around at that point, but Tom Siebel made it into an actual market business, made it something that was seen as important, and built the technologies out to handle scale. I mean, he did everything back in the 90s, right? And just did an amazing job, really. So, those are the kind of things you want to go back to. We can go back in the day to see who impacted at any given moment, but ultimately, Mark is the one who impacts it the most by far.
He brought it to the masses.
Yeah.
And so, and this has been a great conversation because it kind of reminds me, we've been talking about kind of the history. Well, in 2 weeks from today, we're actually going to be talking about
the future.
Sorry for the cheesy graphics. I didn't have time to actually do any styling. But mark your calendars. 2 weeks from today, December 1st, 1:30 p.m. East Coast time, we're starting. This all came about really from one statement from Zach Sprackett from Sugar CRM, which I guess that was 2 weeks ago at this point. I'm losing track of time. Where he made this statement about CRM, at least today, being about stories at scale. And it got everybody thinking, or at least me, thinking, I have never heard CRM described like that ever in my life, in the decades that I've been around. And so has CRM changed, evolved that much that now we're looking at it in such a different way? And what should it be in 2023? So we thought, why not end the year with the CRM Playaz Executive Roundtable discussion on what should CRM be in 2023. Hey, it even rhymes. I didn't even think about that. And I'll let the venerable Paul Greenberg go into some of the details, but as you can see, we're part of the discussion is going to be a panel of vendor executives And we've already confirmed the 3 that you're seeing on the screen here. John Tashik from Salesforce. He's an SVP of Market Strategy. How do you pronounce Neha's last name?
Bajwa.
Neha Bajwa is from Microsoft. She
runs Microsoft Dynamics.
Yep, she's the head of global marketing for the business applications there, Microsoft Dynamics. And Rob Tarkoff is the EVP and GM of Oracle CX. They have already confirmed there will be the vendor panel, and I think we'll have one other vendor we haven't confirmed, so we'll let you know.
Right. We should have that by tomorrow or end of today.
Okay, and then maybe you could tell them about what's coming after that.
Well, see, this is actually 3 panels. So this is the first panel. The second panel will be for analysts, TBD right now. And then the third panel will be the actual customers / practitioners of CRM. And the idea is to get 3, broadly distinct viewpoints. We'll probably get 12 distinct viewpoints, but 3 broadly distinct viewpoints from different looks at where CRM is going in 2023. And, we're going to, as far as I'm concerned, at least, I mean, one of the questions I know I plan on asking, and you guys think about this, is I want to ask all 12, what's your definition of CRM as we're moving forward into 2023? Because I know what my definition used to be. I know what it's become, but I'm wondering, we got 12 people here who are going to be talking about CRM, but we need to know what they think CRM is before we actually continue to question them and, have the conversations get going. And it should be really exciting. And then, so that will be from 1:30 to 3 p.m., about 30 minutes allocated, roughly 30 minutes allocated to each panel. And then following that, on the regular time for the CRM Playaz episode from 3 to 4 p.m., we will have Bob Stutz, who will be able to comment on what he heard from all 12. Which will be
at the end of the day,
interesting.
you want to have Bob Stutz commenting on what he heard.
That's exactly right. At the end of the day. And we will, on that show, we will also discuss a little bit of the upcoming season for Playaz Productions Network, aka PPN.
Okay, and guess who's going to hop on for the last couple of minutes?
5 or 6 minutes, because I know my energy is failing now with this with my flu.
Oh yeah, well it's officially a flu.
No, I don't know that. I mean, it's whatever this bug is. It is. I don't. Let's get him on, and then we should close pretty much on time if we can.
Yeah. Let's see. He said he's hopping on now, so we'll see when the bad boy, or as he likes, I think he likes the bro hammer better than he likes
the bro hammer.
He likes the bro.
Always up for that one. I'm always up for that one.
So anyway, mark your calendars. We'll be putting out the updates as we confirm other folks to be a part of that, because we're going to have, like you said, the practitioners, and we're going to have the analyst thought leaders in addition to the vendors. So we're going to have like a broad range of perspectives. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's a big one too. I mean, it's really, we're doing 3 separate panels in one day, basically.
Yeah. Well, speaking of big ones, there he is,
the biggest of all.
What up? It's
well, you
the
tell
hammer. I'm back. I'm back. How's the enterprise drama going for you guys?
Well, that's what we wanted to ask you about, man. What did you think? What were your initial thoughts when you heard about Bret Taylor?
Okay, I haven't watched your show, so I don't know what the other hot takes were. So I'll just give you mine. We'll see how it stacks up. So basically, I don't have a whole lot of time for the soap opera of like, why did so and so leave? Oh my god, blah blah blah. It's It's like as the world churns, it's like, you can watch that on daytime TV if you want to. But look,
technically, this is daytime TV.
Look, Salesforce is going to be fine, but my buddy Stuart Diginomic already wrote a really good piece on this, and Stuart follows them really closely. I was just having some back channel chat with Stuart about this, and I think one big thing is that this obviously wasn't, to me, this didn't look scripted or planned. So something happened, and the important part there is that screws up, in my view, Benioff's succession planning a little bit as far as, you know, who's going to play a key role in what, because at Dreamforce it was kind of bros in love, you know, bros leading forward together, and now like the investment market is going to expect Benioff to remain the face of this company for the foreseeable until changes are made that allow him to hand off. So if he wanted to leave or wanted to make any kind of changes, I don't think that's on the table anymore. Now, as far as Taylor is concerned, the thing about Taylor is that maybe he isn't a classic CEO from a charisma standpoint, like when you think about the Benioffs or the Ellisons or Steve Jobs or something like that. But his geek credibility was through the roof. Like all the technical architects that I knew that really understand like the guts of enterprise software respected the hell out of Taylor. And so what I can tell you there is that if Salesforce needs to be replatformed to succeed in modern CRM, to your point about what's next for CRM, then Taylor is an incalculably big loss. But maybe it doesn't need that type of dramatic replatforming. And so that, to me, is what is interesting about the departure, because Salesforce can be fine for years and years to come building on what they have. But if they need some kind of dramatic replatforming, Taylor was your guy for that.
Well,
Just dropped the mic. He just dropped the mic on that one. The bro hammer just hammered it down.
Yeah. So that's my hot take.
I mean, it dovetails with some of the things said, although what was different was the geek credibility part, which, I mean, it's hard to disagree with that. I'll tell you that. Again, I'm not going to reiterate what I said, and Brent, if you want to reiterate, I'm just fading now because I'm sick. But so I'll let Brent, you finish out here.
No, one thing the bro hammer made me think about is, we focused on how, Mark seemed to be, a little bit forlorn because he was losing his bro, but also he might have been thinking about, oh man, my plans have just been completely upended. Now I got to go through this again. And you can almost see that as part of what was going on when he was talking to Kramer, like, I thought I had this all locked down. I thought everything was good. I thought I had this guy that was going to be the person I could feel comfortable handing this off to. And now I'm back to square one, maybe. So, there's something to be said about that part of the equation too. But
I mean, I think the net resolution is the net outcome people think will occur is he's going to take a significant amount of time to figure out the next co-CEO if there is going to be one. So it's not going to be a quick decision, given that he was, I don't know if he was blindsided, but let's just say that he was surprised by what happened. And I definitely agree with that one. And so we'll see how it plays out, but Salesforce will be fine because he's still the face of the company, and it doesn't. Yeah, it'll be a loss for typical. It'll be a loss like, and I'm not trying to diminish it, but it'll be a loss like United breaks guitars, right? It'll last about a few days, and then it'll start climbing back after a while. I mean, I don't think Salesforce is going to be dramatically affected by it. I hope I'm right, actually. So.
I got a new face for the company. We can end on this note. Here's who I propose the new face of the company.
I knew it. I knew where you were going immediately.
Minnie, we need you, Minnie. We need you. By the way, we're somehow started the show with a Boston dude, and we've ended the show with another Boston dude. So I'm just going to leave Minnie up and just say, on behalf of all the Boston dudes that have been on this show, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We're out of here. We'll see you next week. Actually, we'll be on the road. Maybe we'll see you in DC on a location.
Yeah, we'll see you. If we do see you, we'll see you from Verint next week.
All righty. See you guys.